Hello guys, welcome back. This is LVR, and today I finally decided to do a roster prediction for Project L. And if you know anything about League of Legends, you basically know that they have a giant ass cast of cool characters. And it's gonna be really hard to decide only on 30 characters that are gonna be in the game and not omit some of the cool ones. That's basically what I decided to do. And honestly, I think 30 characters is a bit too big for a starting roster. It's probably gonna be around 20 or so. And the reason we have 30 is because we already have 6 confirmed characters, so I wanted to have at least 24 new ones, and that's basically how I came to that number. And we're gonna start analyzing right now, but before we do that, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get right into the tier list. So the first category, as you can see, is characters that are already confirmed to be in the game. We have Ahri, Jinx, Darius, Echo, Katarina, and illaoi. Katarina hasn't been shown since the first build, but I still think she's gonna make it into the starting roster. And illaoi has been confirmed in the latest devlog that they gave. And that's basically the first category. We're not gonna analyze any of the characters in here. We have already seen some gameplay, and yeah, that's it for them. Now in this next category, this is a category that consists of 6 characters as well, and it's most likely in the starting roster. So I think these characters are going to be in the starting roster 100%, at least like 4 or 5 of them. And I have a very specific reasoning for that. And the characters that are going to be in here, we're going to analyze them individually. And then I'm going to tell you why I think they're going to be in the game. But you'll probably realize in the middle of the roster, honestly. And then the next category, which is the most important one in my opinion, which is characters that everyone would love. This character, I put in 12 characters, and this category has characters that I think most people would like. So these are not limited to characters that I just like. I tried to be a bit more objective about this one, and I put in characters that fighting game fans, League of Legends fans would like, and honestly that would be good choices for filling up the roster. And I think this is the most important category. And the last one, of course, is a selfish one, where I put in 6 characters that I would like to see in the game and that are not in any of these 3 categories previously. And that's basically it. So let's start putting in characters, I guess. So the first character that I would like to see, and I think is going to make the game anyway, is Jace. I'm gonna very briefly explain what Jace does, and as you can see, he has this giant ass hammer in his hand, and he uses it to wax his enemies. But the main premise behind this character is that his hammer is also a cannon, so he's basically a stance change character, and both of his stances have entirely different moves, and that is basically the premise of the character. In hammer form, he likes to get up close, beat your ass, knock your ass away. He has this giant erector field, and basically all of this side of the moveset is built to rush down enemies. And once he's in cannon form, he basically has ranged attacks. He has this giant ass fireball. He has this gate that amplifies his movement speed, but also when you fire your fireball, it gets faster and does more damage. And he has this move that amplifies his attack speed briefly for a couple of attacks. And that's basically his entire moveset, and I think this would make for a very cool character with a versatile moveset. The next character that I think is gonna make this roster 100% is gonna be Vi. And if I had to use any character to explain her playstyle, it would probably be like Balrog. Maybe Bullet from BlazBlue, but she's basically a character that uses only her fists and likes to stay on your ass, and her moveset reflects that. So her first move is basically a dash trade, which can be charged, and you can move as you do it. Her next move is basically amplifying auto attacks to do more damage every 3rd hit. And the next one is this AoE move that's basically a punch still, a double punch, whatever you wanna call it, and her ultimate is a giant ass dunk. So very simple, very effective rushdown punch buster. The next character is gonna be Victor. Honestly, the best way I could use to describe him, he's like that one MK character that nobody likes to play against, which is Cetrion, I think. And his playstyle is kind of mid-range zoning, but honestly he gives me kind of Doctor Doom vibes, and I think that's really cool. It must be the mad scientist type, but he's basically the enemy of Jace. Jace is like the good scientist, and you could say Victor is the bad scientist. That's basically the main lore. And his moveset is basically mid-range zoning. His Q is a fireball that once he hits you, he can follow up with that laser move. His next move is this gravity field, and if you stand too long in it, you get stunned. And he has this weird ass arm on his shoulder that fires lasers from weird angles. It's kind of hard to control. And he has a zoning type of ultimate that summons this giant electric field that if you stand in it, you basically take damage, and he can kind of control it a bit. So that's basically Victor. Next character is gonna be Warwick. Warwick is a very simple character, and he actually has equivalents in other fighting games. He's basically Saberwolf from KI, or the equivalent from Darkstalkers. I don't remember his name though. And he's a very simple game plan, and he's kind of very important to the lore, so that's also a good reason why he's in the game. And his playstyle is very, very simple, so he likes to bite his enemies, stay very close, clawing at their ass. Then he likes to chase them. He has an ability that increases his movement speed the lower the enemy's health is. He has this fear or taunt ability. And then he has his ultimate, which is the most important, which is kind of a claw suppressing attack. And he's kind of playstyle-wise, I would say, very similar to Vi, but he's also very important to the lore, and I think that's why he's gonna be in the game. Also, he's kind of a cool werewolf character. The next one is Caitlyn. Caitlyn is a long-range zoner type of character that likes to set up traps and keep her enemies at bay and basically force them to the enemy to come to her. So as you probably have guessed, she has very long range, probably the longest range in the game at the start of the game. And her abilities are Q, which basically fires this wing bullet, whatever that thing is, and it does damage to the enemy. Then she can set up traps. And if the enemy steps into the trap, they basically get stunned, and she can get a free shot on the enemy from a very long range. That is guaranteed. Then she has this net ability that fires her back. It kind of keeps distance, and if it hits the enemy, you get passive, which is long range bullet, plus the enemy gets slowed down. And then her sniper rifle ultimate is a very long range guaranteed hit that does a shit ton of damage, but it takes some time to wind up. And the last one in this category is going to be Heimerdinger. Probably the weirdest character in the cast that I have, and he's also the teacher of Jace and Victor. And his playstyle is basically set play, I would say. So what he likes to do is set up his turrets and basically make the turrets do all of this work for him. They basically smoke the enemy, so I would call this set play. Other abilities that he has is this rocket summon, and if it hits the enemy, the turrets do extra damage. Then he has this electric grenade that if it hits in the middle, the enemy gets stunned, and then the tower does extra damage. And his ultimate that amplifies all of the other abilities. It summons a giant turret. It shoots a million rockets at the enemy. And it shoots a grenade that bounces 3 times. So I would say this character is probably set play, and it's probably very annoying to play against in fighting game terms. In League, it's definitely very annoying if you don't know how to play against it. Now you probably realize why I put these 6 characters in here and why I think they're gonna be in the starting roster. These are all characters that I have played any or a significant role in the League of Legends show called Arcane. And basically the reasoning I think they're gonna be in the game is because when they showed off Echo, they showed off the trailer of Echo and Jinx fighting together, which is a part of the Arcane story. And that makes me think that they're gonna use the rest of the cast to actually put them in the fighting game as well. And I think all 6 of them are gonna make it, but that's just my opinion, and I think some of these characters are very cool. I would play them anyway, so I have nothing against this. Now the next and most important category is a objective category, I would say, and in this category I put in 12 characters, as I said, that I would like to see, and the first character that's going to be in this list is going to be, of course, Yasuo. Now we're in the category where there are characters that I think everybody would like to see in the game, and the first one is Yasuo. And if I had to describe this character in one sentence, he's basically Sekiro, the dude from Ghost of Tsushima, and Heimerdinger in one character, basically. And let's get down to his playstyle. So he's kind of a rushdown playstyle using a katana, and that is his first move, this stab. And if he does it 3 times in a row, the 3rd time he fires this tornado, which is very important for his kit. The next ability that he has is his wind wall. The wind wall stops any projectile going through. It's a very annoying ability and very useful. Then the 3rd ability is this dash. He can dash through this enemy, but as you can see, it has a cooldown and he can do it all the time. And basically the main reason he uses it is he can amplify his 3rd sword slash into that tornado thing. And then we come to his final ability, which is basically once you knock up an enemy, that wind move, he does this air wind slash combo. And after that, as you can see, his blade is glowing, amplifying his damage a bit. And he can also do it from the tornado and from very far away. So he's very simple, straightforward, very cool character actually. And I think most people would like him to be in a fighting game. And I think it's gonna happen. Alright, after Yasuo we have Riven. And Riven is literally a fighting game character inside a MOBA. And I'm gonna very briefly explain why that is. So first off, we have her abilities. This is her first ability, these triple slash moves that are separate and that are tied to one move. Then she has this AoE stun. She has a dash shield. It briefly gives her a shield and she dashes forward or in any direction that you want. And she has this ultimate that summons that blade, which actually amplifies the damage of all her other abilities and also has a finishing move that kills enemies that are low on health. So that's her entire moveset. But the main reason she's like a fighting game character is because she's like the only character in this game that can cancel her recovery frames of her normal attack into a special and do it several times in a row. And she can also cancel her recovery frames of her special back into a normal. So she's literally very in-depth and very high skill ceiling, if you want to call it like that. But she's literally like a fighting game character in terms of a MOBA game, and she's literally the only one in the cast. And she looks very cool, in my opinion. Then we have Sett. And Sett is literally your League of Legends version of a grappler, and in my opinion, he looks very cool. And his playstyle would be very simple, I guess something like a rushdown slash grapple style of character. And his moveset is literally amplifying his punches, having this big ass air force. I think that's like he's kicking air or something, punching air, sorry. Then he has this pull ability, and if 2 enemies collide, he basically smashes their heads together and they get both stunned. And his main ability, which is his ultimate, is this I don't know what that is. That's like a choke slam or something. Power bomb, a very cool ultimate. And as you can hear, he is very charismatic in my opinion, and would make for a very cool grappler slash fighting game character. And also when he dunks, everyone that's inside that radius gets damaged based on the enemy's health. I love this character personally, and I think he would make for a very cool fighting game character. And we have some Misfortune in here. And Misfortune is literally just a hot pirate chick from League of Legends. And honestly, what fighting game doesn't need a hot pirate chick? And we gotta have some of those characters for the waifu players. So she uses double guns, as you can see, and she's basically all shooting. And her abilities reflect that. She has this move that goes through the enemy and hits the target behind as well. Then she has this ability that amplifies her movement and attack speed. She shoots faster basically. And she has this bullet rain move. And her most important ability, which is her ultimate, which is this big ass AoE spray and pray move. And yeah, that's basically it. Then we have Akali. Akali is literally your League of Legends assassin slash female kunoichi, and she has a very cool design, and in fighting she uses a kunai, and as you can see, that little scythe, half scythe slash sickle thing that has a chain attached at the end. And basically her abilities are tossing kunais, literally stuff that every ninja does. And she has this amplified scythe thing if she picks them up. Then she has stealth, and she can attack from stealth, but she becomes visible as she does. Then she has this shuriken toss ability, and if it hits the target, she can dash to it. And her ultimate, which is basically this vault, and once she vaults the enemy, she can recast her ultimate and do this flashback dash attack. And she's basically a very cool looking mobile assassin slash female ninja in kunoichi, and a lot of people actually like this character, myself included. Only thing I didn't like is playing against her basically. Next one is Zed. And Zed is probably one of the coolest characters that could turn into a fighting game character from League of Legends. And as you can see, he's a very cool looking ninja assassin that uses shadows actually to do the job for him. And I'm gonna go briefly through his moveset, and then you're gonna find out why he would make a very cool fighting game character. So his first move is Shuriken Toss, a basic ability for every ninja. Then he has this slash spinning move that does damage when you're close to the enemy. And his most important move, which is basically the Shadow Summon. And there's a few properties that the Shadow Summon has. First, he can change places with the Shadow. Then whatever else move he does, the Shadow actually imitates. And that's where the depth of the character comes from. His final move, which is his ultimate, that actually marks the enemy, and after a brief moment it does damage based on how much damage you did previously on him. And it also leaves that shadow in the back, and he can literally swap places with it. But he can also summon another shadow, and then there's a lot of shenanigans there, as you can see. So he can basically summon a shadow, you do his ultimate, and then swap places 2 times and walk away safely. So he's a very tricky and cool character, and I think he would make for a very good fighting game character with this concept. LeBlanc, and I think LeBlanc would make for a very cool fighting game character, and she's basically a burst mage that uses illusionary magic to kill her enemies. And I'm gonna briefly go through her moveset and explain why she would make a cool fighting game character. So her abilities are basically this magic sigil, and once she hits you with any other ability, it does extra damage, as you can see. Then she has this dash ability that does damage on contact, but she can also choose to get back to the place where she started that ability whenever she wants. So it's basically misdirection. You run there and then you go back again. And she also has this chain ability that briefly stuns after a moment, and she can move while the chain is on you. And she has a ultimate ability that actually copies the last ability that she did. So basically, if she did sigil, she can use her ultimate and do the sigil again, and it does extra damage. And she can use it to kill enemies very fast like that. Then if she does dash, she can dash again, and she can go back to both places in whatever order she wants. And there's also extra movement plus misdirection that she can use. And she can do chain into chain, which basically stuns the enemy forever and keeps them in place. But she has also another very important ability, which is her clone. And I'm gonna briefly show it right now. So once she's low on health, she can summon a couple of clones that she can direct in other directions and herself into a different direction to use it to bait enemies. And the enemy actually sees the clones the same as hers, so only she sees which one is the real one. So it's basically used for misdirection. And the clones can also attack, but only with the normal attack. which is this ranged stash shot. So yeah, I think she would make for a very cool and unique fighting game character, but it would be very hard to find a specific playstyle, I guess. Jhin. And Jhin is probably the biggest edgelord in League of Legends. He basically thinks killing people is a art, and his playstyle is not bad either, so I think it would be cool to have a big ass edgelord character in the game. And let's go through his abilities briefly. So his first ability is this bouncing grenade, and it bounces off multiple enemies, doing more damage on each enemy that it bounces off, or each enemy that it kills, the next one takes extra damage basically. Next ability is his long range shot. If the enemy has hit them previously, that shot also stuns them briefly. Then he has these landmines which look like a flower, and after a brief moment they explode and do damage in a AoE zone. And his biggest edgelord ability, which is his ultimate called Curtain Call. He puts himself into stance, summons the sniper, and does 4 shots, each shot doing more damage, the last one doing the most, of course. And that will be it for him. Raven. And next up we have Draven, which is probably the most arrogant character in the entire franchise of League of Legends. And that is specifically the reason that a lot of people like him. He's basically an arrogant asshole, and he's also the brother of Darius, which is already in the game. But apart from that, he has a very cool playstyle. And let's get through his moveset first. So as you can see, he has these 2 spinning axes that he has in his hand, and that is basically his main moveset. And once he presses Q, he spins one of the axes and they do extra damage, but he has to catch them so he can toss them again. Let's do this. And this is basically his main gameplay loop. He tosses axes and catches them. Then his next move is Blood Rush, which is basically giving him movement speed and attack speed, and that allows him to toss these axes faster and more often, and they, as you can see, they do a shit ton of damage. Then he tosses 2 axes in front of him. That's his next move set. It displaces the enemy, basically knocking them away and slowing them down briefly. And his ultimate, which is a global move that executes the enemy when they're low on health and basically hits them and hits them back. And if you didn't know what globally means, it basically goes over the entire map until it hits someone. You can press the ultimate early to cancel it, but it also hits back as it comes back. So yeah, this is a very cool character with a cool playstyle in my opinion, and a very big personality, which is a type of character that I like usually. Azir. And next up we have Azir, and Azir got on my list because he's one of the few cool characters in the cast that could actually turn into a very cool puppet character, and something like Zato from Guilty Gear. So basically Azir is a half bird, half human sand summoner, and he can summon sand soldiers that do the work for him, and his abilities reflect that, and I think that could be a very cool puppet character. So his abilities are basically, his main ability is summoning sand soldiers, then his other ability controls them, making them dash and do damage as they pass through enemies. Then his attacks are shared with the sand soldiers. And his last move, or last 2 moves, one is dashing to the sand clone or a sand summon. And his very last, which is his ultimate, is summoning a sand wall of soldiers that pushes enemies back. That, by the way, looks very cool and opens up some very high level play in League of Legends, which I kind of messed up there, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, this would be a very cool fighting game character in my opinion, and he should probably be in the cast. Ashe. Ashe is basically one of the original characters of League of Legends, and she has a very annoying playstyle. She's basically an archer using ice arrows, which are used to slow the enemy down or to start fights originally in League of Legends, and I think she would make for a very cool fighting game character. So let's go through her abilities. So her normal arrows basically slow the enemy down, which is very annoying. Then after a few shots, she can use her first ability, which is this ice barrage arrow, which fires multiple arrows at the enemy and does bonus damage. Then she has another ability, which is this Ice Volley, a big ass cone that slows the enemy down and stops them from advancing forward. Then she has an ability that is not that great for a fighting game, but maybe it could be reworked. It is basically a scouting ability, firing this Ice Owl that reveals the spot. And then she has her main ability, which is her ultimate that is used to start fights, which is this big ass giant magic ice arrow that stuns the enemy based on how far the arrow flies. And I think she could make for a very good support slash secondary character in a 2v2 fighting game, in my opinion, with a great assist, like something like this, or the ice arrow. And I think she would be very cool to keep some of the legacy of League of Legends inside the fighting game as well. Kassadin. Alright, next up is Kassadin, and Kassadin, as you can see, has a very unique and cool design. It also has a very unique and cool playstyle, but he also has something that is equivalent to Evil Moment 37, which is the Daigo parry, and I think that'll be legacy enough to add him to the game. But apart from that, he's also a very cool character that I think a lot of people like, and he's considered to be like the anti-mage of this game. He's very good against mages because mages do less damage against him. So let's go through his ability first. So his first ability is this Null Orb, firing this orb that does damage and gives him a shield against magic damage. Then he has a amplification for his blade, which makes it glow like that, and it does extra damage on hit. And then he has this Plasma Shout, which slows down enemies, but that kind of seems bland and boring. And his most important ability is actually his ultimate, which is this Teleport. That is very low on cooldown, and he can use it to do damage to enemies, or to gain distance, or go over walls and stuff, but that's not that important. And I still think he would be making a very cool design choice or character choice for a fighting game character. And that'll be it for this category. These are basically 12 characters that I think most people would like to be in the game, and they have a variety of playstyles that a lot of people would like. And that's it for this category. If you have anything that you disagree with, please leave that comment down there, and we're gonna get into the last category. Now in this category, I'm gonna have 6 characters that I would like to see in the game, and honestly, I think a lot of people would like to see them in the game, but this is just my opinion to have them in there. And the first one in this category is of course gonna be Blitzcrank, which is one of my favorite supports. And he's basically a mechanical robot that is a grappler, and he's probably the most annoying support to play against if you're playing solo queue, and I think he would make for a great League of Legends character just because of his unique look and unique playstyle. And he would technically be a long-range grappler, as crazy as that sounds, because that is his main move, which is the arm. Rocket grab, sorry, I forgot the name for some reason. And he basically pulls you like this, and that means death, so he's basically like a long-range grappler. And all of his other abilities support that. He has this upgraded punch or whatever that knocks enemies up. Then he has his movement speed, which is kind of like an overdrive. He overheats at the end, but he uses it to close the gap, then pull his enemies, kick their ass, and basically let his teammates do the rest. Or if he builds damage, he basically smolts you by himself. So I think he would make for a very cool fighting game character. Next one that I would like to see is going to be Thresh. Of course, another one of the Hook Bros, and it's Thresh. He's a very cool design in my opinion, and a very unique playstyle, and he's also considered to be a support in the game, but I think he would make for a very cool fighting game character. And he fights using that sickle in his hand, but mainly he's used as a support in this game, so he can toss out the lantern, and if the ally clicks on it, he basically gets pulled back to Thresh. And his main ability is similar to Blitzcrank's grab, but instead of pulling you to him, he can pull himself to you. So that's the main ability that he has, and he can also toss a lantern and pull another ally to himself and the enemy. So that's like the main use of his kit. Other abilities that he has is this push away with, or pull in. He can decide if he wants to push you away or pull in with his chain, scythe, whatever that is. And the final ability that he has is his ultimate, which summons this hexagon or pentagon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. Never mind, it's a pentagon, not hexagon. So it's like a box that acts like as a gate, and if the enemy passes through it, he gets slowed very hardly and takes a lot of damage. Of course, you can pull him to the wall, and I think he would make for a very unique and cool playstyle. And as you can see, he's also a ranged character, so he doesn't fight from up close. So I think it would be kind of like Axel, to be honest, in Guilty Gear. Next one's Lee Sin. And this is probably one of the most popular characters in League of Legends. And I personally think he would make for a very cool fighting game character, and Project L would be trolling if he doesn't get added to the main cast. So he has a very high skill ceiling, and he's a very fun character to play. And I'm gonna briefly go over his abilities and show why he would make for a great fighting game character. So his first ability is called Sonic Wave, and is a two-part ability. The first one is throwing out that Sonic Wave, and the second one is he can press it again to follow up and hit his enemy and close the gap. His second ability is called Safeguard. He can use it to shield himself or shield his allies and dash to them. And he can recast it to gain a bit of spell vamp or lifesteal, so he basically gets a bit life back by hitting enemies. It's nothing significant. His next ability is called Tempest/Cripple, which is this ground pound that he can recast to briefly slow his enemies. And it has a small AoE, so it hits all the targets that are close to him. And his final ability, which is his most important one, is called Dragon's Rage, and he basically kicks the enemy away very hard. With the exception that if he kicks one enemy into the other enemy, they basically all get knocked up, and that's how it works. But that is not the main reason why this character is very cool. The main reason is because he can safeguard to other stuff that are not his allies. And for example, these wards, he can safeguard them. But he can also do it from one ability. So basically, if he does this and mid-flight, he can cancel it to go to the ward, which is something that is very cool. And he can use it to set up advanced plays. So this is one of the things that people like about this character. He's very high skill ceiling, and for example, he can place a ward back behind the enemy while he's dashing to the enemy. So it would look something like this. He does this, then dashes back and kicks the enemy to the team. So I think that would be something very cool that you could incorporate into a fighting game if done properly, and I think he would make for a very cool fighting game character. Next one is Lux. And Lux is obviously one of the characters that I would like to see, and she's basically a long-range sniper type of mage that uses lightning magic or light magic to kill enemies. In this case, it's dark magic, just because I selected the skin, and I would really like to see how she would turn out as a fighting game character. So as you can see, she's long range, and her first ability is Light Binding, and it basically roots the enemy in place, and it's one of her core abilities, so it keeps the enemy in place. Then the next ability is kind of a support-oriented ability, giving herself and her allies shield as this orb passes through them. Then her third ability is a big-ass lightning/darkness, in this case, ring, as you can see, that is on the ground, and she can choose to pop it to do damage. And this is the basic combo that she has, so she basically does Q plus E, and she combos that into her ultimate, which is a long-range lightning, in this case dark sniper move. So as you can see, it goes pretty far and it does a shit ton of damage, and it's also on low cooldown. So the playstyle of this character is very unique and very fun, honestly. You basically just stand there, try to snipe enemies, combo them, and delete them like that, and you basically do it over and over again. So she has a very fun playstyle, and I would really like to see this in a fighting game format. And she's very popular among players because she's kind of easy to play and very safe. Next one is Udir. And Udir is probably one of the coolest characters that could be turned into a fighting game character, just on his sheer concept. So as you can see, he's a basic monk character fighting using his arms, with the addition of him being able to use spirit animals to transform himself and fight literally just with his fists. But it actually looks really cool, and I think it could make for a great fighting game character. So let's check out the transformations. His first transformation is Tiger, And as you can see, he looks very cool. Then his next is Turtle, which is kind of a defensive transformation as he gains a shield. And yeah, increased lifesteal and stuff, but that doesn't matter. Then his next is Boar, and I think this used to be Bear, but the concept is basically the same. If he hits you while he's in this transformation, he basically stuns you for a brief moment. But nonetheless, it looks very cool, and it could be adapted into a cool fighting game form. And the last transformation that he has is Phoenix, and it does damage when you're close to him, as you can see, and he looks very cool with a fiery transformation, in my opinion. So just based on the fact that he would have 4 transformations, I would like to see how cool this would look in a 2D fighting game. And he would obviously be a basic brawler type character, but I still think this would make for one of the coolest characters to be in a fighting game, just on the sheer variety of transformations and how cool they look, in my opinion. And the last character in my roster is gonna be somewhat a new character, I guess, and it's gonna be Samira. And she literally feels like she came out from a Devil May Cry sequel, and you're gonna find out what I mean once you see the playstyle. So she's basically a pirate chick, another one on this list, that uses a gun and a sword. And she actually has proximity normals, so when she's far away, she uses her gun, and once she gets close in, she uses a sword. Her Q ability literally reflects that as well, but it has more range, and it's literally the same. Now her next ability, which is a W, basically has this AoE spin thing that deflects projectiles. And the next ability that she has is a dash, and if he kills the enemy, she basically can do it again. And if you have noticed, she has a sort of letter next to her name, and this is basically a stylish meter from Devil May Cry. So once you do cool combos with her, the meter raises from E up to S rank. And only when she's in S rank can she do her ultimate, and her ultimate is basically Reaper's ultimate from Overwatch. And we're gonna get to S rank very fast. And she can basically delete enemies and do it again once she does. So she's a very cool looking character with a very fun playstyle, I think. And she would make for a great fighting game character. And this is my entire tier list of Project L. If you have any disagreements, feel free to write them down below. I know there's a lot of characters that I would put in here that are missing from this list, but this is basically what I would like to see, or something similar in the starting roster. At least like half of the cast that we have in here. But anyway, if you like this content, hit that like and subscribe button, and if you have anything that you agree or disagree with, you can discuss it down below. I would gladly dispute you on that, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.